Esteban, thank you so much for joining me today.
I'm so happy to be here, man. Thank you for inviting me.
I can't wait to dive into it. I have so many questions I can't wait to pick your brain on. But before we start talking about sub 3 hour marathons, would you mind telling us a little bit of your story?
Currently with a stoma bag. Ulcerative colitis started in 2009, I think. I'm originally from Colombia. I live here in Australia, Sydney. Been living here half of my life, just a bit over now. And then I never seemed to have any issues while I was in Colombia. Came here to Sydney, and then 2 years after, I started to have all these, the ulcerative colitis symptoms, a lot of bowel movements, bleeding, pain, the whole thing. Obviously, diagnosed with ulcerative colitis not long after, and basically 10 years with ongoing symptoms. I'm guessing, probably a lot of people who listen to the podcast would know the whole protocol of starting with the easy stuff, lysine, then going to steroids, biologicals, and then 10 or so years later, by around COVID 2020, everything sort of stopped working for me. And I just decided to have the ileostomy, total colon removal, and I haven't looked back. I'm a very happy man after that surgery, to be honest. Life-changing.
Fantastic to hear that, to say that you have gone through so much of torment with ulcerative colitis, and then to say the stoma was such a positive influence on your life. Because I know a lot of people that would listen to this could find themselves in the position you were in, extremely bad symptoms, and then maybe possibly biologics stop working. And I know myself, when I was first floated the idea of a stoma, I was like, I'd rather be dead. That's the end of my world. No, absolutely not. But to hear someone like come and say life-changing, I haven't looked back. It is absolutely fantastic. Were you always a runner before your surgery, or was it something you took up after?
No, back in teenage years, I played a lot of football, soccer, whatever word, the way you want to understand
Be
it.
careful what you call it,
Yeah, I know. But but in my teenage years, I grew up with in a very active family. My dad, very active, always doing different kinds of sports. I used to play a lot of football back then. And then since I moved to Australia, I pretty much stopped. There was a little bit of gym, strength training, but never anything that stuck for probably longer than 6 months. And especially 2 years after, I started getting all IBD symptoms, and so life sort of stops by. I think most people who have IBD would understand that you try and maybe stuck to a routine of exercise, something, and then something comes up, and you'll be lucky to get more than 6 months to a year of steady exercise until you have to stop again. Running just came, I think, naturally around when I was I'm 36. That was probably when I was 22, 23. Only briefly, like I said, because of the IBD symptoms. Back in that age, social media wasn't as big. There was obviously not many run clubs around. Strava didn't exist. Your Garmin watches could barely sort of get GPS connection of the whole thing. So I would just run just for fun. I think there was no competition, no time. So it was just about just trying to exercise a bit and go for quick runs in between life, jobs, and the whole thing. But I pretty much just did it for a few months in my 20s, and there wasn't really anything super serious about it. I've always enjoyed it. I guess cardio, exercise, I've always liked the combination of different things. Running, I've done bouldering, rock climbing, cycling, mountain biking, and road cycling as well. But like I said, nothing really sticks for me for more than like 6 months to a year. And then it only became a bit more serious after 3 years after the surgery. I saw a friend that posted a very long run training for the Sydney Marathon back then, 2023. And I was like, hey, can I join you one day? And he was like, yeah, just come in. And I was like, I'll probably do 7 to 8 Ks max. I think that's like 5 miles or something. And then I ended up doing like 16 Ks, which I was just like blown away. Maybe because every time I used to go for a run, it would always be really fast. You never really knew about zone twos, anything like that. You just like run as fast as you could. And so because the run was fairly friendly, we ended up running all these, and I was like just hooked. And from 2023 onwards, I've pretty much just stuck to a routine running with him sometimes, and eventually just started just getting into it a lot through social media, through research. So I've never really done a coach, like a coach or a PT for any of the running things, but I've learned a lot in the process. So that's kind of like the running journey. Really, only seriously, probably 3 years.
Yeah, fantastic. And to achieve what you've achieved, which we'll dive into in a little bit, self-coached is amazing. It shows that you're so passionate to go out and learn what you need to learn to progress. When I watched your own story, you said, it just stuck with me, give up or lace up. And I just thought, wow, bang, that's just so on the money. Do you find that when you started your running journey, it was a great way to take back control in your own life with everything that you've gone through?
Absolutely. I think that's why it stuck to me. Just makes me feel really good. You know what I mean? And yeah, I love the running for challenge myself, doing PBs and the time and the whole thing. But for me, despite having the colon removed, most, ulcerative colitis kind of like went away. But I've had an endless amount of autoimmune conditions that basically just kind of like grew from the ulcerative colitis I developed. Throughout my ulcerative colitis year, I developed like asthma, arthritis. There was so many things. I have kidney stones. I've had skin conditions, eczema. I can probably, I have a huge list of stuff that I've gone through. And so right now after the surgery, or the past few years after the surgery, despite having my colon removed and living a pretty good life, which, compared to everything you go through, I think life's pretty good right now. But I still have a fair bit of skin conditions. Like I scratch my skin quite a lot. I try and avoid dairy, gluten, because if I eat those things, I feel like my seborrheic dermatitis in my head, my skin just gets all itchy, stuff like that. I've had something called eosinophilic esophagitis. So it's kind of like a reflux. So every few nights I have a really bad night. It's probably like once or twice a week. Wake up, these sort of reflux, salivating. I can't get proper sleep. Probably twice a week. Just wake up and it's always really bad. So for me, running really, coming back to the question, I think it's escaping, or maybe not even escaping from the reality. It's just like coming back to who I really want to be one day, which is like a fully healed person. You know what I mean? I guess you probably experience it. You go and run. You could be stressed. Your stress goes away. All my itchiness or everything that I could be potentially feeling at the time, everything just goes because your body just sort of centers and focuses on breathing, on running. So it is definitely life for me.
Completely. I know myself, I would suffer with pretty much the same issues you just described there. I find that when you get one autoimmune condition, you're nearly collecting the rest of them like Pokemon, It's just, they all just seem to trigger like a domino effect. For myself, with the kind of reflux problems, I used to suffer at night all the time. And now I'm quite diligent about intermittent fasting, where I probably don't usually eat after 6 o'clock in the evening. And that has been a big change in my, now, not always possible. Life gets in the way. Even last night, I ate at like 10 o'clock and I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning, I was like, oh, why did I just not go to bed?
Really?
It's finding the things that work for you. But unfortunately, all the things that come from having one autoimmune condition, unfortunately, have such an effect on our life. And as you said, when you get out for your run, it's nearly like an escape. It's like just that moment of peace where you're just focused on exactly the task at hand and everything else falls away. I just want to circle back to something you said as well. All our interpretation of what running is go as fast as you can. And then we get gassed and we're like, oh, I'm not very good at this. I'm going to pack it in. And that was my interpretation of running all my life until someone told me to do a 5K, you just go as slow as you can until you get there. And I was like, you don't have to
100%.
sprint. Yeah, you don't have to sprint your way through and get gassed after a K and have to pack it in. So that is definitely great advice for people. The first run that you went out after your surgery, do you remember something kind of clicked in your head?
I think just the feeling that I got from doing that first run, like years of not being able to do it, because I think after I had the surgery, I could have tried maybe very short runs while I was doing some other activities like the gym, bouldering and the whole thing. But that just became more of a challenge of like, Jesus, I didn't think I was able to do 16 Ks and then I just did it. I think let's just try and stick to this. And I've always said to people that start running, the best thing you could probably do as well is just enroll into a big race, something challenging, a half marathon or a marathon or something that once you paid, you're committed and you will train. So it is the best for accountability. And the first thing I did after a few weeks of running with this mate of mine, luckily the Sydney Marathon wasn't as high demand as it is now. So I was able to book it in straight away. And that just got me into the whole gear pretty much. And from then it was like non-stop.
Well, what I want to talk about your time is because the second I saw them, I was like, my God, this boy is fast.
Thanks.
What was the kind of moment where you thought, I'm not just going to go for runs, I'm going to run fast?
I guess you probably found me when I commented on Owen's post. I was like, 5K challenge, hold my beer. Because I'm ready to smash him. Yeah, I don't know. I think, look, I've never been particularly talented at or aerobically capable. I'm just like very disciplined. I'm 36 years old. I don't have time to muck around anymore and, waste my time. Things that I'm passionate about, I just stick to it and try and work as hard as I can. And for some reason this gave me a lot of purpose. After I ran the first Sydney Marathon, I was like, you know what? I should just probably create a channel because I'm a pastry chef. And I just wanted to create social media where I can talk about these problems because I just didn't want to talk about colitis and feeling down. What's happening with me with all the autoimmune conditions through my pastry account. So I was like, let me just create a proper Instagram page where I can just talk about everything running related, Stoma, IBD life, the whole thing. And then that's still runs. I'm very passionate about all the running, fitness. It's just a big project. And in regards to the races and the speeder, like I said, I don't have time to waste, and I just want to. It just became a bit of an obsession for me with everything. Just things are falling into place with the page, with the project, with the goals that I want to achieve, and so I found myself sticking to the plans, doing the strength exercises that I need to run faster, doing the mileage that I need to do in order to run faster, and so everything has been pretty gradual. It's just like 3 years of compounding, a little bit better every day, just more mileage, more strength, learning from mistakes, recovery, proper sleeps, just the whole basic rules. I'm sure if I get a PT can probably fast track you onto better results. But for me, the philosophy is just like train hard, recover, eat well, things start to pay off. Stimulus plus recovery equals adaptation, and then just like compound it from there.
Completely. And when you put the correct foundations in place, the amount of work you can do yourself personally, as you've shown, like you've been able to go on this journey and build yourself up, learn, educate, and achieve just by literally putting the hours in and stacking the days. And I just want to circle back quickly to like the inspiration for starting your page, because I know we can get so bogged down on what we're experiencing in the moment with our symptoms, and that's what we can talk about online. But I think it's amazing to show people that when you use your page and you show your running, what's actually possible and what's achievable, because we all know if you're experiencing IBD and experiencing life with a stoma, what goes on behind closed doors. But if you can see someone who's out there knowing what's going on behind closed doors and achieving what you're achieving, is a fantastically inspirational thing to do for people. And it's so positive to see so many pages of people like yourself out there achieving unbelievable goals despite all the obstacles that are put in front of them. So it's a fantastic thing to do. I just want to jump into, you hit a sub-3 hour marathon. Like that's crazy speed.
Thanks.
When did you hit your first sub-3 hour?
Last year, first and the only one I've done. Yeah. It's basically, I've run 4 marathons. 3 of them, I was trying to hit a PB. One was just mostly I'm not going to say it was for fun, but it was just, I wasn't going for a PB, and I just try and enjoy the actual marathon. Sydney marathons started in 2023. That was a 4 hours and 18. Then the following year, 2024, I've been taking like half an hour every year, 30 minutes every year. So the following was 3:27. And then last year, 2025 was, I say 2:55. It was realistically 2:56, but it was just
We'll give you 2:55.
Yeah, just give me the 2:55, because that's what the first thing the app on the Sydney Marathon said. I was like, and then it changed for some reason. I was like, nah, you already told me 2:55.
Yeah, you give me the first one. Yeah. That is fantastic. And to see the progression of your timing, and to really that's serious pace to be knocking off every single year. Like a marathon, I haven't done a marathon yet. I've done a half marathon and loved every second of it. Now, the last maybe 5K, I was pushing myself as much as possible, and there was a real mental conversation going on in my head where I suppose I went back into, at the 10K mark, my foot started bleeding. I had kind of shoes that I hadn't broken in properly. They were white. There was just blood everywhere. One side was red, one side was white. Very funny. But when I went into that kind of zone of the last 5K where my foot was killing me, I'd nothing left in the tank. I was like, you have been through so much worse things in your life than running a half marathon. I was like, come on, keep going. For you, when it gets to that kind of maybe final stage of the marathon where you're pushing and pushing and pushing, what conversation goes on in your head?
Look, I'll tell you straight away, if there's any group of people that would have resilience for the last 10Ks of the race of a marathon, IBD worries, man. I've always said it. Going through that pain, it's like, man, I had 10 years of the worst chronic pain ever. I've gone through so many bad things. Little example, a couple of times where I had an anal fissure, right, from straining, pushing, right? And then I had to put suppositories in. Sorry to be so explicit, but I'm guessing people have IBDs that find it pretty normal.
We all get it, yeah.
Yeah, having to put suppositories in, and I remember the pain was so bad that I would cry every time I had to do that. And then imagine just like you have 20 bowel motions a day. If you have a flare up, having to do that, your anal fissure just like ripping bigger and bigger, bleeding, hurts. So those sort of things, I just think of situations like that where I'm like, I chose this pain voluntarily while I'm in a race, right? I don't like, honestly, it's just nothing. It's just like a little bit of that pain, and I'm just going to embrace it. I like it. I like that sort of suffering. Like, you've gone through so many bad things, so much pain that this one's, you can't really compare it, for me at least, because I went through a lot of painful situations.
Completely. And I completely get it, because it's nearly like the privilege to choose your pain and knowing
Yeah.
that I've been here before. Nah, this is nothing. I know that this pain is going to be temporary, whereas the previous pain I had to experience was a constant daily struggle that was enforced upon me, that I had no choice with. Whereas now I'm choosing my pain to push as hard as I can. And I know the pain is going to end, because if it's the last 10K, last 5K, you're like, I know I just have maybe whatever amount of time it's going to be to get there. So there is that little bit of being like, I can push through this barrier because I know what I've achieved before. But I know the suppositories from my own experience, they're horrible. Absolutely horrible. And I didn't have an anal fissure at the time. First time I was put on them, I was about 13 years old, and I used to just hate doing them to the point where my mum was like, I'll do them for you. And there used to be war in our house at night time, because I'd be like, get away from me with that thing. And I'd start running around the house. It's nearly like a game of cat and mouse, where she used to be chasing me around the house with this suppository. Like, when I think back to just the experiences that you go through to try and improve your health, when you come to the modern day and you become an adult, you look back at these things, you're like, there's nothing I can't do because I've already gone through that. There's a brilliant mindset to build up. What are the challenges, I suppose, that you've come across of training for a marathon, doing them long distances with an ostomy?
Yeah, definitely the chafing. That's something that you learn. I use Stoma belts, but you have to be careful with some of the belts, because they might still irritate you. You learn to use Vaseline or just chafing ointments or creams for around your stoma. Hydrating. I think the sodium intake for us should definitely be a bit higher, but also taking into consideration sweat, right? Some people sweat a lot more. I don't sweat a lot, but I make sure I'm fully hydrated before every run. And while I'm on a run, I always take extra liquids. I just never really wait to be super thirsty before actually start my fluid intake. I just make sure I'm always hydrating properly. I've had last year, while I was pushing quite high on the mileage, I had a couple of times where I did not take a running belt, and I had a prolapse. That was probably twice. And funnily enough, the first time that happened, I thought I was having a blockage, and I was having some abdominal pain, and I was just running, and I was kind of like trying to think what sort of food it was that caused me the blockage while I was running. And it just starting to get worse and worse. And I was, I don't know if you've experienced this, but then the blockage, you sort of like try and push to try and get the food out. And then I started pushing harder, and then suddenly I just put my hand on the stomach, and it was just all prolapse. And I was like, this is not a blockage, this is a prolapse. And then I still have probably like 7-8 Ks to get home. I ended up just running with my hand on my stomach, all prolapse, and then just getting home and just laying flat, putting sugar, the sugar tray. And And for me, my prolapses don't really last. As soon as I come home, lay flat, put sugar, it sort of goes away. But I've learned that if I'm going to do any sort of run longer than 1 hour, I should definitely use a belt just in case. I think just the effort that running causes prolapses. And yeah, probably a big lesson. Yeah, those three maybe.
Yeah, I've never experienced a prolapse myself, thankfully. Touch wood that it never actually happens. Now, I wear a belt. My skin around where my stoma attaches really sensitive skin, so the only way I can make the adhesive always stick is by wearing a belt. So I kind of wear a belt 24/7. I never take it off. So I always wear a band and a belt to keep it stuck to me. So I suppose that is a kind of preventative measure that I'm doing unbeknownst to myself. I spoke to Owen back in the run. He got a prolapse as well before. He kind of put it into my head being like, oh, this running game, you got to be real careful.
Yeah,
you got to put the steps in place. When you experience a prolapse, do you just let it fix itself, or do you go and seek medical advice?
I've never gone seeking medical advice because luckily for me, it's never lasted more than a couple of hours. Like I said, most times I would just get home, take the bag completely, and then just apply a bit of sugar on top of the stoma, and it would normally just within a few minutes it will shrink back to its normal position.
When you experience it one time, there's probably a little bit of fear that comes the next time. You get a little bit apprehensive, but I suppose obviously that reminds you to put the steps in place, like wearing the belt and different things like that. I actually use a friend of mine. He created a anti-chafing stick. If I get a chance to come over to Sydney this year, I'll bring one with you because it is fantastic. Please. It's completely natural. I would have really, really sensitive skin, and no matter what I use, my skin would get quite aggravated from it. I can use this on any part of my body, and it is just, oh my God, it's the best thing. It's saved me so many occasions.
Really?
Because when I started running, I never experienced any chafing because I was only doing short things. And when I started upping the mileage, I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about when it comes to chafing. But this stuff is just, oh, it's magic. It's magic. But hopefully I've applied for my charity spot to do the Sydney Marathon this year. Just waiting for confirmation to get back. But if I do, I'll 100% bring some over to you. Just want to dive into your health at the moment. Are you on any medication, or are you just kind of seeing how things go?
No medications. Always taken, I've probably the last 12 months I've been taking supplements because I had another autoimmune episode of alopecia. So about over a year ago, just over a year ago, I had a full beard, probably like you, and I started having a big patch in here, and then my beard go all patchy, completely bald here, and then suddenly my head, and then I started getting all this patchiness around my head, ended up being a type of alopecia called alopecia areata, and that lasted for about maybe 6 months, and then eventually I saw a dermatologist with more of a natural approach, and then I didn't take any steroids or anything like that. I've pretty much been avoiding steroids since my surgery. I haven't taken any prednisone since my surgery, luckily. But this dermatologist just sent me a whole heap of supplements that I wasn't taking, like things that I think as most people, especially people with IBD, should take for autoimmune conditions. Without, not medical advice, but vitamin D, vitamin C, omega-3s, turmeric, all these type of things, and they eventually started improving. And thankfully, there's, I don't know if you might be able to see, there's just a little bit here on the back of my head, but it's mostly gone. That was pretty dramatic back then. And I think emotionally, just psychologically, it affects you a lot. Just seeing yourself like that.
Absolutely. I was a hairdresser for about 10 years, and I have a lot of experience of people experiencing hair loss and coming to me. And at the moment, my beard used to be really, really thick, and it used to line up about here. And in the last kind of 6 to 8 months, for some reason, it is just getting really, it's nearly like alopecia. There's some small little tiny gaps coming in it. So at the moment, I'm really working on building up my nutrition intake. I'm trying to get as much of it from food as possible. But obviously with our absorption quality from losing our large intestines, I've lost some of my small intestine. You really have to add some supplements into it to try and build it up. But it's very hard with everything you've gone through, and then for something so visual to happen to you, because we get happy with how I look. I used to love how my beard would fill up. The other things you take a little bit of pride in. Like next thing you're like, oh, don't take something else from me. Oh my God, that's such a kick.
100%.
The identity and the image impact it can have on us can have a real impact on our daily life. For you, when symptoms arise and different things like the alopecia, did that have quite an impact on your mental health at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was already very difficult because I had a beard just like you. I've had all type of hairs. I've been short hair, long hair. I've dyed my hair. I change it up pretty much every year, 6 to 8 months. And it's very, very annoying just to see yourself bald or in a way that you wouldn't do it in, all the way. Just mentally tough. I think that was probably the colitis side. It's painful, but I think this just like emotionally looking yourself. I had to shave my head bald like if you were going through like some sort of chemotherapy or something like that. It wasn't easy.
Completely, it's very tough to have such a visual impact on you because you go through so much, and you like no one sees the internal struggle that's going on with the impact of the stoma or the ulcerative colitis, and then to have something so visually affect you, where you look in the mirror and you're seeing it every day and knowing that it's having a real impact on your self-image and your confidence is very, very tough. And hair loss is such for both men and women. Like there's a saying in hairdressing: your hair is the crown you never take off. And when that thing that you identify with, and you look yourself in the mirror and you're happy, you go out the door, you fix your hair, whatever. We feel good, we feel confident. And then for something to be forced against you that actually takes that away from you is such a hard thing to go through. And this is kind of a side of the autoimmune conditions that not a lot of people would see from the outside, is that there's all these comorbidities and this kind of like domino effect that one autoimmune condition can lead into another and another and another. And then you're dealing with all these things. I suppose when people start talking about Crohn's and colitis, so I was like, oh, you go to the bathroom a lot, and it's like, no, I have to deal with 50 other things to just try and get through the day. So it's very, very, very tough. For your own mental health, is it just you find running as your therapy? Have you gone to speak to someone? What do you do to kind of improve your mental health in times when it's necessary?
I have seen a psychologist, but I didn't really stick to it after that long. I feel like exercise, honestly, is the way to find solution to a lot of your problems. I could probably be, I guess, smarter in a way, trying to find other ways, but exercise for me does the job pretty well. I am somebody that also recommends it in a way, like if you're stressed out, if you're having through tough time, I don't know, something that has, because recommending, let's say, a run to somebody that has going through ulcerative colitis, it's hard because then you can't physically go out and exercise a lot if you're not well, right? But for all the sort of mental problems, stresses and stuff, I think just exercise is the thing I would probably say gives me the best reward or solution.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. It gives you a focus on something else to take you out of your body, maybe take you out of your mind, just to get a moment of peace in that time where you're pushing yourself, you're sweating, you're out of breath. You can't really think about anything else because you're just trying to survive at the moment of the race or the run or whatever it is you're trying to do. For someone who's could be at the beginning of their running journey, they've maybe gone through stoma surgery or currently they're just maybe out of a flare, what advice would you give them to kind of take the first steps just to maybe get out and get moving?
I'll say my first piece of advice is just choose something that you would truly enjoy. If you don't know exactly what you like I knew running was definitely something that I enjoy. Just put yourself in a position to try different things. Just go and play tennis, go for a run, maybe go to the gym, whatever suits you. But just do something that's not, for the sake of peer pressure or social media. Just go and do it, because that would be the only way that sticks to you. I see a lot of people that pretend to enjoy running, but they only do it for social media. And then, when the trend goes away and all the run clubs stop and everything, I think it would just be a waste of time. Just find something that you like. But let's say if you like running and you want to start running, the best thing you can probably do is just start everything so small that it feels actually way too easy. You think you can run 5Ks? That's about half an hour running, 40 minutes of running. Just go out and run like 10, 15 minutes and then mix that with a little bit of strength training. Try and maybe hit the gym once a week, because I just can't stress it enough. It's just so important. When after the surgery, I had a period, that transition period of like recovering and then starting moving my body. And I started working again, jobs that require me to walk and stay standing for many hours. And my knees would just hurt so much, to get inflamed. And I think it was just a lack of not really standing on my feet for 3 years while I was with my ulcerative colitis right before my surgery. Those 3 years, I just couldn't move. I was laying in bed most of the time. My body was not nurtured properly. Your colon's so inflamed, you can't really eat. You lose so much weight. I was down to like 48 kilos. I was super skinny, basically lost a lot of strength on my muscles. So best thing is just try and do a bit of strength training, go to a park, maybe just do some air squats, just basic stuff. There's so many examples on YouTube for, beginner leg training outside, even without weights. And then from then onwards, just gradually build up. I think that's the best you can do, because people just get, like you say, excited, just go for a run, and then they start sprinting, going really fast, and then their knees hurt. It's like, oh, my knees hurt. I think I'm not good for running. And then they just quit. I was like, no, your knees are going to hurt. Every time you go for a run, the first few months, 3-6 months, your knees are probably going to hurt. But then you build strength, and then that way you'll probably be enjoying it. Because once you get to a point where what used to be a hard run now becomes an easy run, and you sort of feel like you're floating. Some days you're like, oh, I can actually speed up even more. I can do 2-3 Ks extra. At that point, you're hooked. You can't stop. Because you're like, no. I've progressed already. I'm not going to lose all my training. I'm moving forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think when we get out the door the first time, we get full of motivation to actually kick things into action. We're nearly like a dog that gets the zoomies. You're like, oh my God, I'm going to run out and I'm going to run really fast. And that can actually be detrimental to your progression, because your body obviously isn't used to it. You need to take things off, put in the baby steps to get things going. And I love what you said there as well. Like you've taught yourself all of this, you just by researching online and putting your own programs in place. Because I know there is an extra financial pressure that comes with being ill, and all the supplements we have to buy and all the other things we have to spend money on that other people usually don't. And then if you were to say, oh, I need a PT, that's another expense on top. But you are testament to someone who just goes, take the time, learn what you need to learn, and go out and put the small foundations in place to get started. Because as you said, go to a park, do some air squats. You can use your body weight to actually progress just as quickly as you may have gone to the gym. So yeah, it's fantastic advice for people. As a man who's been through so much and come through it so strongly, and is now using your experience to inspire and educate others, for someone who's maybe at the start of their IBD journey, or maybe they're in the middle of it, they're finding things really, really tough, is there any advice you'd have for them?
I think personally, what comes to my mind first thing is I created all this resiliency because of the will to live. From the moment I started getting this, which was 17 years old, I'm 36 now. This lasted until 30. I've always said I have so many projects in my mind. I want to do so many things that just the will to live overpowers everything else. But I think I've heard in some of your conversations with somebody else, can't remember, you did say that sometimes you do get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't know if you want to live anymore, and you understand that's something that I created empathy for. Sometimes when you're healthy, you never really understand, and you see people that are so sick and they say, I'd just rather die instead of continue living like that. And some in the families always like, yeah, just keep pushing, but then once you go through all those struggles and what's like to be extremely sick, right, with a pain that wouldn't go away, that you have sort of no hope for months and months on end, you sort of start understanding that position and have empathy for that people. And I guess probably like you, a lot of people, that goes through everyone's mind. When is this going to end? When is it going to end? You start having a flare-up, and a flare-up is not going to go away in 2 days. It could last 3 months, 6 months, maybe even longer. And you can be taking all this medication, nothing works. You always have that hope. But I guess from my experience talking to a lot of people with IBD, that eventually the rainbow comes, right? Eventually things brighten up, and whether it has to be a solution of medication, stoma, surgery, things brighten up. And I think just that's how we build that resilience, and we always come out stronger on the other side. And I am very thankful of you, ulcerative colitis, for me, because it was hell, but it was a great teacher, like a big life lesson that you learn so many things. It probably taught me how to stay very strong during marathons and be able to run and have my mind just strong. And, so many other things, but I can only think right now of especially marathon, because I love running.
And I think it's a beautiful perspective on it, because as much as our diagnosis and everything we go through is utter hell, and in the moment that we experience it, it is absolute utter hell. But you get to a point where you can look back and go, wow, look what it made of me, and look what I can now achieve because of what I've actually gone through. And it can be very hard for someone to hear that who's probably in the depths of it now at the minute. Because I know when I was personally experiencing serious flares or in hospital having surgery, and someone was telling me, oh, look at the positive side, look how strong it makes you. At that time, you're thinking, fuck that. I don't need this in my life, you know?
Yeah.
But to have people like yourself coming on and sharing that I was there too, I was in the depths of it, I was clinging on to hope to try and get past it and move into a better day. But to see people who've been there, and I know, Owen, before the concept of the pain cave, you have to sit in it and then come out through it and get back to life. So I think that's the fantastic thing about people coming on like yourself, sharing what they went through, knowing that they were in the depths of it and saying, look, I've come through it, I'm stronger because of it, and now I can achieve so much more. So no, thank you so much for sharing that, mate. What is your plans now going forward? I know marathon training and getting as fast as possible absolutely is going to be at top of that list. But I suppose professionally and in a sporting sense, what's your next steps?
Couple of things. So as I mentioned before, I'm a pastry chef, and I would love to transition into content creation, running IBD Live, the whole thing, just because I love cooking and I love cakes and I love sweets and I love things, but it's always been this sort of career that I feel like it has affected me just as much as it's given me happiness, because I really enjoy it. But I think it's just always like right now, even without the colon, I avoid gluten and avoid dairy, and I don't always, because I sometimes just eat it, but I know it causes more harm than good to me. So that's why I sort of choose this path of fitness, running, staying healthy, eating proper food, just making better, smarter decisions. And I wouldn't mind completely just going off my chefing career and moving on to this. And I think it just requires a fair bit of effort, but I think there is a lot of big projects in the horizon. I've been talking to Owen, since you know he's more of the ultra marathoner, and I'm more of the marathoner only. I just probably 42 Ks is more than enough for me. I don't go any longer than that. I just like when I do marathons, I just like to rev my engine a whole lot, right? Go really fast as I can. So we have been looking into like the Guinness World Record of what the fastest marathon time is for a person with a stoma. And I think for a man, nobody's claimed that title. So I started digging really a bit deeper, and I think I could technically claim that title of the fastest person with a stoma bag, but there was somebody in Canada a few years ago that he did this record, and it probably wasn't interested on doing the Guinness record, never claimed it, but he ran 2:27 marathon. Yeah, he was actually like a semi-elite, or he was a runner for most of his life, so they're definitely very fast. So I think if I wouldn't mind chasing that goal, becoming the fastest person with a stoma bag, like officially faster than him. And I feel like I probably have maybe 3 to 4 years to chase that dream. Yeah, that would require a whole lot of effort, because I've been shaving 30 minutes every year, but then getting from a 2:55 to a 2:26, now it's like that's elite times for me. And I wouldn't mind becoming the first male to run with all marathon majors with a stoma bag. I don't know if you know, I forgot her name right now.
Adele Roberts.
Adele Roberts, right?
Yeah.
She's the first woman to have done it. I wouldn't mind becoming the first man to do that, and they're also the fastest. And I mean, if I'm gonna do them all, might as well just do them Sub-3. All of them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic goal. And we go through so much in our lives which is enforced pain. And we get forced down an avenue of trying to fix our health before we can actually have any ambition or achieve any of our goals. So I think when it comes to getting through your IBD journey, chasing your passions is a fantastic thing to do, because it makes your life easier. Whereas if you're constantly fighting maybe to go to a job or not doing things that you like, it makes your life a lot harder. And we can say we go for the safety and go for the safe job, but a safe job with the way the world is, I don't think anything's safe anymore. So you might as well actually put the work in, the side hustle to try and chase your passions and you know, find things that give you purpose to get out and achieve things. Because how great would life be is if every day you got up, you were chasing your passion, because we experience so much. We need that that balance of being like, I've learned this is what I've learned from my journey, and I actually want to go and inspire others by sharing my journey through my passion. So it's a fantastic goal to have, and I think no better man to achieve it. I can see those 7 racking up fairly soon with sub 3 hour paces coming in.
Oh, wait. First of all, I want to congratulate you because you're doing an amazing job. Spreading the word and just trying to gather all these people, because I basically I'm here because of you and Owen and IBD Life as well. So, you guys are creating some great community. Last thing I wanted to say in regards to the marathons and stuff. I don't know if you saw a few months ago, the Abbott Majors launched a competition, and then I made it to the top 3 finalists. You had to create a video and say why we should choose you. So I made this video about, my story and the whole thing. And I went to the 3 finalists. The person who won was an amazing guy as well. But, I was fairly close to winning, and I would have won entry to every single marathon. So I would have ticked that in like 2 years. It would have been incredible. Anyway, didn't actually make it, but they did. They're giving me an entry to Sydney, which I didn't have. So I'm running Sydney this year as well. So, if you want to train for a sub-3, I'll pace you.
I'll be a while of it, but I appreciate the offer. I actually saw that on your page. I meant to ask you about it because I was in South America at the time when you were supposed to put your video entry into it, and I thought, this is my route to get there. But fantastic to get to the final 3. I'm sure there was some seriously tough competition.
Yeah, there was a lot of competition, but I think the judges liked the whole story, and I think it's just relatable for a fair bit of people. Overcoming health challenges, it's never easy. Probably the last thing I want to say in regards to that is that, funnily enough, right now, for the first time in 5 years since I had my surgery, the past 3 or 4 days, I've been having some symptoms in my stump. The rectal stump, I haven't been removed, and I'm just getting a little bit of like weird inflammation, and I kind of feel like it gives me that PTSD from the colitis when you have that urgency. There hasn't been any blood or anything, but it's that. And I'm talking about having this symptom right now because also a week ago, I went to the doctor just to get blood tests and check how everything is before I go overseas. And everything was fine. And I told him I'm running marathons and I'm chasing all these things. And he told me, he's like, marathon running is very, it's hard on your body, right? Creates a lot of inflammation. And I'm like, yeah, I'm aware of that. It's like, as long as you're aware of that. So the main point of all this, in saying this, I'm chasing these big goals, huge times, Guinness records, and the whole thing is I'm chasing it, and I'm very competitive, and I'm going to put my effort, the biggest effort I can do to be able to achieve this. And sometimes you don't leave your ego on the side. You actually, keep your ego, and you try and do as much as I can, and you forget about your own health. And I don't know if this inflammation on my stump right now is because I've been pushing my body too much. I don't know if with this type of high level of performance and effort, your body just stresses too much and it creates inflammation. But one thing I'm sure of is I will never sacrifice anything else for my own health, right? Because we know what losing your health is, and if I get to a point where I'm getting so sick that I have to stay in my bed or start sacrificing other things, I would completely call everything off, all these projects off, in order for me to be back to good. And I remember seeing somebody that was pretty true when they said, running is life. It would never be as as important as health, right? Nothing's more important than health. So even if I love running, but if I have to sacrifice all these and stop running because of I have to be healthy, I'll do it. And so as much as I love chasing these things, I think just the whole purpose of me running at the end of the day is keeping healthy. That's it. I love chasing the goals, but if it's going to make me sick, then we might have to drop down and then just run 3 times a week just for fun, 10Ks instead of doing 90 kilometer a week.
Yeah, completely. And that is great advice for people, because without health as the baseline, there are no achievements and there's no ability to do anything. And whereas it's great to find your passion, but if your passion unfortunately starts inhibiting your health, you have to find your health as your baseline, because other passions can follow. And without having the building blocks in place to allow you to live your life, there's no point in chasing any of these ambitious goals, because we all know how important health is. So that's fantastic advice for people. Essie, thank you so much for your time today, mate. It's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you.
Thanks, brother. Thank you. Really appreciate it, man.